My hands won't stop shaking. I'm locked in the office, 10th floor, and it's past midnight. Through the glass walls, I watch his shadow move closer, steady and slow like a predator. The file I need, the one with all my project notes, it's gone. Someone took it from my desk while I was in the bathroom. My heart pounds so hard I hear it in my ears. If only I had seen this coming, I whisper to no one. The fluorescent lights flicker above me, casting strange shadows across the empty cubicles. I press myself against the wall, trying to stay invisible. His footsteps echo in the hallway, getting louder. Each sound sends ice through my veins. I know he's looking for me. I know he knows something's wrong. The doorknob turns slowly, and I hold my breath. This is it. Everything I've worked for, everything I've suspected, it all comes down to this moment. The door swings open, and his silhouette fills the frame. He pauses, scanning the darkness. "I know you're here," he says softly. 6 months earlier everything seemed perfect. Marcus Hale arrived on a Tuesday morning, all smiles and expensive cologne. Our company had been struggling, and he promised to turn things around. "This team has so much potential," he announced in the conference room. His voice warm and confident. Everyone loved him instantly. He wore tailored suits, remembered everyone's names, and brought donuts every Friday. Within 2 weeks, he'd reorganized 3 departments and promised promotions to half the staff. I was skeptical at first, but even I got caught up in the excitement. He noticed my marketing campaign proposal and called me into his office. "This is brilliant work," he said, sliding it across his desk. "I want you leading our next big project." My chest swelled with pride. Finally, someone saw my potential. He shook my hand firmly, holding eye contact just a second too long. "We're going to do great things together." But there was something in his smile, something I couldn't quite place. Later that week, I noticed him watching Sarah from accounting through his office window, taking notes while she worked. Strange things started happening in week 3. James from sales, who'd praised Marcus publicly at a meeting, suddenly stopped coming to work. HR said he'd resigned, but his desk still had his coffee mug and family photos. Then Patricia, our top designer, came back from a private meeting with Marcus looking pale and distant. She barely spoke anymore, just stared at her screen with hollow eyes. I tried asking her what happened. "Nothing," she whispered, glancing toward Marcus's office. "Just drop it." But her hands trembled as she typed. I mentioned it to David, my cubicle neighbor, but he laughed it off. "You're being paranoid. Marcus is the best thing that's happened to this place." Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. People who got close to Marcus changed. Their energy drained away like someone pulled a plug. One evening, as I gathered my things to leave, Patricia grabbed my arm. Her grip was desperate, her eyes darting around. "He feeds on ambition," she breathed. "And fear. Don't let him see either in you." Before I could ask what she meant, she released me and hurried away. The special project started Monday morning. Marcus called me into his office, gesturing to a leather chair across from his massive desk. "I've been watching you," he said. "You're different from the others. Hungry. Smart." He slid a thick folder toward me. "This project could make your career. Are you in?" Every instinct screamed to refuse, but ambition won. This was my chance to prove myself, to finally get that promotion I'd worked years for. "I'm in," I said. The next 2 weeks felt like a dream. Marcus praised my work publicly, bought the team lunch, and told senior management I was indispensable. Co-workers who'd ignored me suddenly wanted to collaborate. My parents called, proud after I told them about the promotion track. Maybe Patricia was wrong. Maybe I'd been paranoid. Friday afternoon I stayed late to organize the project files. That's when I saw it. A document buried in the special project folder. A list of names with dates beside them. James, Patricia. Others I recognized. And at the very top, in bold letters, my name with next month's date circled in red. The presentation disaster happened exactly 1 week later. I'd spent days perfecting the pitch for our biggest client, rehearsing until I could recite it in my sleep. But when I opened the file that morning, everything was wrong. Slides were out of order, data was corrupted, and key graphs had vanished. Panic seized my throat. The meeting was in 20 minutes. Technical difficulties, I stammered to the clients, my face burning. Marcus stood in the corner, arms crossed, disappointment written across his face. The clients left early, clearly unimpressed. Afterward, Marcus gathered everyone in the conference room. "I'm afraid our teammate let us down today," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "This kind of carelessness costs us all." No one questioned him. No one asked if something else might have happened. They just stared at me with a mixture of pity and judgment. I wanted to scream that I hadn't made those mistakes, but who would believe me? That night, working late and alone, I found something carved into my wooden desk. Strange symbols, fresh and deliberate, forming a pattern I didn't recognize. After that, everything accelerated. My phone started acting weird. Calls cutting out mid-conversation with bursts of static, messages disappearing before I could read them. Emails I'd sent vanished from my sent folder. Co-workers I'd known for years walked past without acknowledging me, their eyes vacant. One Tuesday, I arrived to find my computer password changed. Claimed I'd requested it myself. I hadn't. Desperate, I started digging through old company files, accessing archives most people forgot existed. That's when I discovered the pattern. Every 6 months for the past 5 years, someone ambitious and talented had joined a special project, then either quit suddenly or became a shell of themselves. The dates aligned perfectly with Marcus's tenure reviews. Each victim had shown the same progression: public praise, then isolation, then disappearance or breakdown. My hands trembled as I printed the evidence. This was bigger than I'd imagined. Thursday afternoon, I found a note on my chair, written in Marcus's precise handwriting. "Don't dig too deep. Some things are better left buried." I needed help. Old man Chen had worked here for 30 years before retiring last spring. People said he knew everything about everyone. I found him at the park, feeding pigeons like always. When I showed him my research, his face went gray. "I wondered when someone would finally see it," he said quietly. "Marcus isn't just a bad boss. He's something else. He thrives on the lives he manipulates, feeds off the potential he destroys." Chen's hands shook as he pulled something from his pocket, a small silver talisman etched with symbols similar to those on my desk. "Protection," he explained. "Keep it close. Don't let him know you have it." I wanted to ask more, but Chen suddenly stood, his eyes widening as he looked past my shoulder. "Go. Don't come back here." I turned to see what spooked him, but saw only empty sidewalk. When I looked back, Chen was already hurrying away. The next morning, I called his number repeatedly. No answer. His daughter told me he'd left town unexpectedly. No forwarding address. The evidence was undeniable now. I spent every spare moment tracking Marcus's methods. He'd identify the most ambitious employees, promise them everything, then systematically undermine their confidence while encouraging small failures. The fear and broken dreams somehow strengthened him. He seemed younger, more energetic after each victim fell. His eyes literally brightened when someone broke down crying. Tuesday, I thought I'd found an ally. Rebecca from HR had always been friendly, and I trusted her. I showed her part of my research, careful not to reveal everything. She listened, nodding sympathetically. "This is serious," she said. "Let me look into it." Relief flooded through me. Finally, someone believed me. But Wednesday morning, everything changed. Rebecca wouldn't meet my eyes. During the team meeting, when I presented an idea, she was the first to shoot it down. "That won't work," she said coldly, and Marcus smiled. After the meeting, I overheard them in the hallway. "She suspects too much," Rebecca said. Marcus's response chilled my blood. "Don't worry. They always do right before the end." I needed a win, something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. The Miller account had been struggling for months, and Marcus had publicly assigned it to me as one last chance. Everyone expected me to fail. I worked 70-hour weeks, researching every angle, crafting the perfect strategy. The presentation day arrived, and for once, nothing went wrong. The clients loved it. They signed a 3-year contract worth millions. For the first time in weeks, my co-workers looked at me with respect again. Marcus congratulated me publicly, shaking my hand firmly. "Excellent work," he said, and I almost believed the threat was over. Maybe I'd proven myself too valuable to destroy. Maybe I'd won. That night, I celebrated with pizza and terrible television, feeling lighter than I had in months. But at midnight, my phone buzzed with a video message from an unknown number. It showed Marcus in his office, alone, watching footage of my presentation. He was laughing, not the polite chuckle he used in meetings, but something darker, more satisfied. The video ended with him looking directly at the camera, mouthing, "As expected." The nightmare came that night, vivid and suffocating. I wandered through an endless office where the walls breathed and the fluorescent lights dripped like melting ice. Marcus sat on a throne made of filing cabinets and broken dreams, wearing a crown of shattered ambitions. Everyone I knew stood around him in circles, their eyes empty, their mouths moving without sound. "You belong here," Dream Marcus said, gesturing to an empty space beside him. "You've always belonged here." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The office stretched infinitely in every direction. Then the talisman Chen gave me, which I wore around my neck even while sleeping, began to burn against my skin. I woke up gasping, the silver pendant glowing faintly in the darkness. The light pulsed 3 times, then faded. My bedroom felt wrong, like someone had been watching me sleep. I checked my phone. 3:33 a.m. When I opened my work email, there was a message sent at 3:30 a.m. from my own account. I hadn't sent it. The subject line read, "The clock is ticking." The body was empty except for a countdown. 14 days. The coffee shop meeting happened by accident. I was hiding out during lunch when someone slid into the booth across from me. Angela Martinez. I recognized her from old company photos. She'd worked here 3 years ago before my time. "You're the latest one," she said without preamble, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "I've been watching. You're asking the right questions." Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Emails showing Marcus had deliberately sabotaged projects, manipulated performance reviews, and orchestrated resignations. Financial records suggesting he'd been doing this across multiple companies for over a decade. "He destroyed my career," Angela said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "Took everything I'd worked for and crushed it because he could. But I kept records. I knew someday someone would be brave enough to fight back." I wanted to hug her to thank her, but she was already standing. "Be careful," she warned. "If he suspects you know too much, he'll accelerate his plans. You won't get a second chance." Friday morning, I walked into Marcus's office with Angela's evidence and my own research. My hands didn't shake. I laid it all out on his desk. The patterns, the victims, the deliberate sabotage. "I know what you've been doing," I said. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe even fear. Then his expression smoothed into concerned confusion. "These are serious accusations," he said slowly. "Do you realize how this sounds?" Within an hour, he'd called an emergency meeting with HR and senior management. I presented my case, but Marcus had already planted seeds of doubt. "She's been under tremendous stress," he explained, his voice dripping with sympathy. "The failed presentation, the pressure of the special project. I should have seen the signs of burnout earlier." They looked at me with pity. My evidence, which had seemed so solid alone with Angela, now appeared circumstantial and paranoid. "Take some time off," the HR director suggested gently. "Rest. We'll talk when you're feeling better." I left the building in a daze. That evening, I discovered my apartment had been entered. Nothing was stolen, but everything was slightly wrong. Books rearranged, Drawers opened. My laptop moved. Someone had been searching for something. I had 2 weeks, the countdown was clear. I started tracking Marcus's schedule, noting every pattern and deviation. He arrived at 6:45 a.m. every day, left at 8:30 p.m., but Wednesdays he disappeared for exactly 2 hours during lunch. Where did he go? I followed him one Wednesday, keeping 3 cars back as he drove across town to an old warehouse district. He entered a building with no signage, carrying a leather briefcase. 90 minutes later, he emerged looking energized, almost glowing. I needed to know what happened in that building. Tuesday night, I broke in through a loading dock window. The interior was set up like some twisted corporate shrine. Desks arranged in a circle around a central platform, walls covered with photographs of people I recognized from my research. All of Marcus's victims, their faces marked with red X's. On the platform sat a ledger, handwritten in Marcus's precise script. Names, dates, and beside each entry, consumed. My name was on the last page, dated for next week. As I photographed everything, Marcus's voice echoed behind me. "You're running out of time." I barely escaped that warehouse, running until my lungs burned. The photographs I'd taken revealed the full scope of his operation. 43 people across 7 companies over 12 years. Each one talented and ambitious. Each one broken systematically. But the ledger showed something else. Detailed notes about methods, timelines, and something he called the transfer. Whatever Marcus was doing, it wasn't just psychological. The descriptions suggested something impossible, something that shouldn't exist in the real world. Thursday morning, a figure I never expected appeared at my door. Chen, the old man who'd disappeared, looking exhausted but determined. "I couldn't leave you to face this alone," he said. "I've been gathering information, talking to others Marcus has hunted. We think we know how to stop him, but it requires finishing what he started." He explained that Marcus's power came from stolen ambition and manufactured fear, that he'd bound himself to some kind of corporate curse years ago, trading his humanity for success and control. "The only way to break it," Chen said, "is to turn his own methods against him." Monday morning I made my move. I'd scheduled a company-wide presentation, claiming I had evidence of financial misconduct affecting everyone's jobs. The auditorium filled quickly. People love drama. I presented everything. The patterns, the victims, the warehouse shrine, the ledger. For 5 glorious minutes, I thought I'd won. Then Marcus stood up. His face the perfect mask of betrayal and concern. "This is worse than I feared," he said sadly. "I've been documenting her declining mental health for weeks, hoping she'd accept help." He displayed emails I'd never sent, erratic and paranoid. Medical reports I'd never authorized, suggesting severe stress psychosis. Time-stamped security footage that appeared to show me alone in the warehouse, talking to myself, arranging those photographs myself. The evidence was flawless. Fabricated but flawless. My co-workers' expressions shifted from curiosity to pity to disgust. I'd been framed perfectly. Security escorted me out while people whispered. My career was over. My reputation destroyed. That night, alone in my apartment, the talisman burned so hot I had to take it off. It glowed brilliant silver, pulsing with light. The symbols made sense now. Desperate, I'd researched everything. Old books from the library, obscure internet forums, conversations with Angela and Chen. The pattern emerged. Marcus's power wasn't just psychological manipulation. It was something older, darker. He'd bound himself to a force that fed on control and fear, giving him unnatural charisma and the ability to manipulate perception. The talisman reacted to his presence, to his power. The warehouse wasn't just a shrine. It was where he performed whatever ritual sustained him. Every victim's broken ambition fed the curse, making him stronger. The symbols on my desk, the ones in the warehouse, the markings on the talisman, they were all connected to the same ancient corporate curse. Some desperate executive had discovered it decades ago, and it had passed from person to person, corrupting each bearer. Wednesday night, I returned to the office building alone. The talisman led me, pulling toward something I'd never noticed before, a maintenance door that shouldn't exist according to the floor plans. Behind it, stairs descended into darkness. Down there, I found a room that predated the modern building, walls covered in the same symbols. And in the center, a contract signed in what looked like blood. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. The contract named every person who'd held Marcus's curse before him, going back 80 years. Each had traded their humanity for corporate power, feeding off the ambitions of others until the curse consumed them completely. Marcus was just the latest in a long line. But there was more, fine print describing how the curse could be broken. The bearer could be freed only if someone willingly took their place, or if they lost control completely, consumed by their own methods. The curse fed on fear and broken dreams, but it couldn't survive someone who refused to break, someone who transformed their fear into power. Finally understood. Marcus hadn't been trying to destroy me. He'd been trying to prepare me as his replacement. Every sabotage, every humiliation, every broken dream was meant to fill me with enough fear and desperation that I'd accept the curse willingly. The special project, the countdown, even the frame-up, all designed to break me down and reshape me. But I'd learned something he hadn't planned on. I'd learned his methods, understood his power, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Friday night, the talisman led me to his office. He was waiting. "You finally understand," Marcus said, standing behind his desk like a king in his castle. The office felt different now. Shadows moved wrong, and the air tasted like copper. You could be magnificent. All that potential, properly channeled. Around us, the symbols from the warehouse appeared on the walls, glowing faintly. The curse made visible. "I'm not taking your place," I said, holding the talisman high. It blazed with silver light, and Marcus flinched. "Then you'll be destroyed like all the others," he snarled, his polished facade cracking. The office warped around us. Filing cabinets rose like monoliths, fluorescent lights flickered in patterns that hurt to watch. He'd pulled us into the curse's reality, where his power was absolute. But I'd prepared for this. Using everything Angela had documented, everything Chen had taught me, I began speaking the counter-symbols, the words that reversed the curse's flow. Marcus's eyes widened. "You can't. You taught me manipulation," I interrupted. "You taught me to use fear as a weapon. You taught me that control is everything." I activated the evidence I'd hidden throughout the building. Recordings, documents, everything set to automatically send to media outlets, corporate boards, and law enforcement at midnight unless I stopped it. The curse began to unravel. Marcus had built his power on control, and I'd just taken it from him. Around the office, his victims' names appeared on the walls, all 43, glowing brighter as the curse lost its grip. "No!" Marcus screamed, but his voice was weakening. The more he fought, the faster his power drained. The curse consumed those who lost control, and he was losing it spectacularly. I watched as years fell away from him, revealing what he'd really become. Hollow, empty, a shell maintained only by stolen ambition. The warehouse shrine collapsed. The false evidence he'd created dissolved. Every manipulation he'd woven began reversing. Emails corrected themselves. Security footage showed the truth. His victims' memories cleared as the curse's influence faded. Marcus fell to his knees, aging rapidly as the curse consumed its failed bearer. "You don't understand what you've done," he gasped. "Someone always carries it. The curse doesn't die." "I know," I said, holding up the contract I'd found. "But I'm not afraid of it." I burned the contract with a lighter, and the curse burned with it. Marcus screamed once, then vanished like smoke. The office snapped back to normal, just a regular building, empty and quiet. 3 months later I stood in my new office. After Marcus disappeared and the truth emerged, the company underwent massive restructuring. They'd offered me his position, but I refused. Instead, I started my own consulting firm, helping other companies identify and remove toxic leadership. Angela joined as my partner. Chin became our advisor. The talisman sat on my desk, now just a simple piece of silver. Its power spent but its reminder eternal. My phone buzzed. Another person reaching out, asking for help with a boss who seemed too charismatic, too controlling. Smiled. This was my real calling. Sometimes late at night, I thought about how close I'd come to breaking, to accepting the curse's offer of power. I whispered the words that had become my mantra. If only I had trusted my instincts sooner. Yet falling was the only way I could rise. The moral was clear now. Courage, wisdom, and resilience could overcome any manipulation, any greed, any fear. Marcus had tried to ruin me, to mold me into his replacement. Instead, he'd handed me the life he couldn't control, one built on helping others, not consuming them. Freedom, I'd learned, wasn't the absence of control. It was choosing who you became despite it.